now that I talked about how to lay out bumper plates and how to safely organize it, lay it all out, the reason I made it for the first video is because that's the premise and the basis on how I measure and how I organize and how I lay out a facility as well. Because if we think about it, so we're laying out a new gym or we're trying to reorganize the gym that's already existing, how do we measure it? Like, what's enough space? Where we do put the rig? What's the most efficient layout? And all that kind of stuff. We need a measurement tool for a CrossFit gym. And a barbell, I think, is the most efficient one, because burpees, wall balls, pull-ups, sit-ups, kettlebells, things like that, they take a very little space. Barbell takes up the most amount of space. I mean, there's rowers and so forth, but realistically, those are used, once a week or so, bikes. But the barbell is used all the time, and that's how I've done measuring for me. It all kind of started from me organizing competition and trying to figure out how can we lift safely and efficiently, and to run heats and constantly do that, and it kind of evolved in the way how I organize and lay out my facilities. And so when we moved into this location 2-3 years ago, was it 2 years ago, I used that exact thing, because before I just kind of measured and made it all work and moved stuff around. My previous location, I moved the rig, I put it on the wall once, and then I made it freestanding, and then I made it freestanding longer, but instead of 70 inches wide, I made it 48 inches wide, narrow, and instead of like 6 squat stands, I made it longer and made it 8, and so people were making fun of me quite a bit for constantly changing stuff around. I ended up had some mats, and I moved them all around, but that's just how I am. But in this location so far, I haven't moved the mats, I haven't moved the rig, and there's a ton of factors of how the facility would change. Ceiling height, size, is it square, is it straight, is it, can we put rig into the wall, can we not? What's the access points, is there bay doors, things like that. There's just so many questions, so it's kind of hard to start. So we'll just start with what I got now and what measurements I use and how it all organized. And so the basic unit that I like to use, so one barbell it's 11 foot wide by, I like about 12 feet. It can, 12 feet, there you go. So it's a kind of, I don't know if it's a square or rectangle, whatever the proper word is, but basically something that's a little bit longer than wider, and so the barbell would be like this. And so it generally is kind of 3 mats with some space offset on each side. So when we take it, my facility now, it's almost 5,000 square feet, and one side is all just office, there's storage, there's kids' room, and the storage here so that we don't have to hear the kids through the office, because we could have flipped it, but it's better to have that space in between. Then we have 2 bathrooms here there's like 4 showers, and then we got the poopsters, sinks, and so forth, urinals, stuff like that. And so that part was relatively easy, because that's all kind of standard procedure. That's all based to code. And we kind of measured so it all fits, and the storage was basically like the accordion. So depending on kind of where we were with all this and that, this made it narrow or wider, and I'll probably go into the, it's a bit special storage in our place. I went a little crazy with it, but we'll get to it. So that's where it was. So when I was measuring this place out to see, is it feasible, can we move in here, is there enough room? What I wanted to do, for me, I wanted to be able to go, let's try it right here. So I want at least 15 barbells, that's my measuring tape. 15 barbells, so that's my bare minimum of how much I want. Plus I need about 2-3 barbell area, warm up, and then I need also like hangout area. And so looking at this place, the way it happened, since it's almost square, I kind of divided it roughly in half. And so we want this to be, let's write it in red, the workout space. And this is the hangout. There's doors right here, more in the office. And this is warm up. So that's kind of how I was roughly measuring. And then the math came up to, so I need at least 24 feet this way, so at least 24 feet to the rig. So if I was to put rig anywhere right here for the rig, it has to be at least 24 feet to have 2 rows of barbells. And then I like to do the freestanding rig better than I like to do the against the walls, just because you can double the amount of space. People can go on both sides for pull-ups, and also you double the amount of squats then, so I don't have to drag the metal ones around. And I also customize my rig to make the pull-up bars longer, so this way you can actually hang 2 people off each pull-up bar rather than, you know, just one and kind of offset it. And so one more line of barbells here, and so that means that basic space-wise I need it to be at least 55 feet long this way. We also want to have access because the bathrooms are all here. So let's say we want 5-6 extra feet for stuff, and I want some storage around the side. So basically what we end up with, let me go over here. So then when we measure in the facility, if I wanted for 5 barbells, 3 rows of 5, we want it to be at least 55 minimum, plus, you know, let's say 3 feet on one side for storage, plus, you know, about another 5 feet for walking around, and that's kind of where we are right behind this, where the bathrooms are. So then this way, we're doing the math, so to the rig, we want at least 24 feet to rig, plus the rig itself is about 6 feet, because I want it regular width. And then this way we need another about 12 feet for the 3rd row. So that is combination of 30, so about 42 feet minimum. And then we need, you know, a little more room for hanging out and warming up. So that's another, you know, roughly 12 feet. So when we all it up together, about 55 feet, and that's kind of where I ended up. And of course, if there's more room and, you know, money's not an objection and stuff like that, we can go as wild as we want to be. But if we're just trying to be like scientific about it and organize in an efficient way and not have to move stuff around, this is what worked really well for me. So that's just a general idea. So that means when I was looking for 15 barbell space, you know, I needed about a 55 by 55, let's do X, let's say 60 foot square. And that's training. Man, my English not good today. Plus hang out, warm up. Plus we need, you know, let's say about another 1,000 square feet for bathrooms. You know, office, storage, all that kind of stuff. That means, so if I was moving into this place at about 3,500 square feet for 15 barbell class, I'd be able to do it in about 4,200 square feet. And the numbers can be adjusted a little bit, like this realistically can be more like, let's say 10 by 10 would actually work okay, and then we can probably bring that number down a little bit. But this is what my comfort zone is, this is how I lift, and this is what I'm happy with. But numbers can be massaged a little bit, and for workouts when I'm not lifting actively but the bar's already loaded and we don't need the spacing in between for the weights themselves, we can consolidate a little bit, so where we have 5 bars here, we can offset them and actually set up 6, and they'll be perfectly fine for a workout because we no longer have the bumper plates in between right here. So because of this is being gone now, there can be 6 bars and it'll be okay, it'll be no problem whatsoever. So, but let me just plug in, I guess, my other mic, and I'll walk around and show what we got. This is kind of my warm-up area, and we separate, because over the years I've accumulated quite a lot of different mats. So I have flat mats over here, and I have the diamond mats on this side. So this way I don't have to tape the floor or separate. So when we're doing the classes this way, the warm-up area is that way. The hangout is there, there's plenty of seating, a couple of bikes a row for people to warm up. And all the extra work, a lot of times we'll do dumbbell bench press and things like that, and people will do some pumps and curls, even though it's not really CrossFit circa 2009. And then also in the warm-up area, there's a GHD and a reverse hyper and our weightlifting shoes for the members. some mobility posters, kilo conversion chart, extra barbells. I do like to put extra barbells in all the locations, in all the different corners of the gym. So I got one in this corner, I got one in the other corner. I'll show you another one in a different one, so this way people don't have to cross the entire gym to go get the bar. And especially if we run in one class on one side and the next, and it's say 10 people or under, or we don't need the other side, people can warm up and use the rig and certain other things this way that class working out and the class coming in is not interfering with each other, which is a great thing to have. Very fancy storage for the broomstick, which I actually paid good money for, but I really wanted it. I don't like the buckets and so forth. Got our benches, tables, these little things right here, all the mobility stuff, the bands that are hanging off the rig, and so everything is really nice and neat. You can see the outdoor area, so we got it nice and matted. I cut everything so it's super neat, and then we got red, white, and blue chairs because of course we do. And just a nice little area to stretch, hang out. Sometimes in summertime or certain air times, people will even go and do the workouts there. I'm pretty forgetful about programming things like that we can just go outside and do sometimes, especially living in Florida. It's like such a cool place to do it, but maybe this year I'll try to be better about it, and part of this whole videoing myself is coming out and doing certain things that I'm not really used to. So, fingers crossed. There's our walkway there to the bathrooms. My rowers are offset to the side. I got a few more barbells stored over here. All my regular high temp bumpers are stored right there. All the little clamps, plates, more change plates, the 5-pounders, bands, clamps, and so forth. It's all stored nice and neat on the rig. So a couple things I just realized kind of as I was walking around. So one thing I like, so when I was planning this facility out, and this is, I kind of changed. I had at first barbell set up right here, separating kind of the hangout and the warm-up area, but it didn't work and it's not as efficient. So what I do now is I have it right here. I have a bunch of barbells, then I have the weights, and then I have more barbells right here, and then I have a few more barbells right there. So no matter where you are, there's something nearby so that this guy right here, especially because I warm up a lot of times right on the rig right there, I don't have to go all the way right there to get to get a barbell, and I have already extra weights here. All the kilos are kind of right there. So it tends to be that all the beginner people concentrate kind of in this area, and then as you progress that way, a lot of times they'll be more advanced. And it's not a hard and fast rule. It's just that people want to lift in kilos. If we're deadlifting heavy, a lot of the thinner plates are right there, and so we kind of, and also it's just more kind of private, quiet. And the pull-up bars start from taller and go shorter and go that way up. So a lot of those kind of things worked out and happened on its own, but it does work really, really well. And I haven't changed anything about this layout except for this rig piece that I added on, because I had like, I don't know, it was something along the lines of like 20, 30 feet this way between the rig and the wall, and so extended another 6 feet. Didn't cut into that space that much, but I was able to put a lot of storage on it, saving a lot of space on the floor, and also adding an extra 4 pull-up spots and a couple of wall targets and things like that, so that was really helpful. The roll-in whiteboard. I like the roll-in whiteboards far better, because a lot of times the handstand push-up spots, the wall spots, it's all kind of at a premium, and there's always a really odd like nooks and crannies in any facility you go. And so with this guy, if I need more space on the floor, I just move it where the rig is and it doesn't bother anybody. And this way it opens up more space for me, and it's just a much more versatile place to be. My previous location was very like weirdly shaped, where it was kind of a square, but then there was a big kind of jut protruding out, kind of like this, with and there was big glass windows everywhere, so there's only like 8 spots on the wall. It was all concrete blocks. There's only like 8 spots on the wall where to do the handstand push-ups, so I wanted a couple more, and so I moved everything around. We came to the conclusion that the whiteboard is the best way to go. And one thing I want to say too, that if we got this space, a lot of times it's really nice, especially if you got a hangout or a warm-up area, put the bumpers as a wall, because it's just such a nice handy height that people can hang out. I mean, they want to jump up, they can sit on it, but it's really cool and visually separating. So one thing I wanted to talk about was the offset from the rig. So there's the rig, the mat is 4 feet, and there's my platform over here. So I like them being a little bit further away. This way when we lift, It's not too far back. It can be moved a little bit more back, and it'd be okay if it's about halfway there, and the lifter still has plenty of room, but I like it right there, because there's enough room here to do burpees behind. We'll move the barbell that way and move around. So there's some definite flexibility to how a facility I would lay out, and obviously depending on the space, the concerns, the needs. But doing some math and figuring things out and organizing it really, really helps. The other thing I like about being a little further away, that we're further from the rig, especially if you don't do the same thing as I do and make custom pull-up bars, then the spacing between athletes, you'll end up being where an athlete is right here, but the rig upright is dead behind them. And so if we were to fall in the snatch or anything like that behind, that you'd have an upright there potentially stopping you. And so instead here you have an open space. So being a little further away gives you that extra margin of error that nobody has a bad time and everybody can lift safely and efficiently. And so that's part of the thinking what I do. But for me, it's worth the hassle to go and fabricate a few extra pull-up bars, because they're not terribly expensive. They're not much more than the road. I mean, and I'll show in the rig video what you can do with the pull-up bars you have that you're not using anymore, because there's a bit of a life hack that we can do with them. I mean, it's somewhat wasteful, but it's better than getting rid of them. I don't think you can sell them anymore, because everybody has a bunch of extra pull-up bars as we switch to, whether they're Dirty South or whether they are, single individual ones. Everybody ends up with a bunch of random, especially those dual pull-up bars that nobody needs. Hopefully this helps with some ideas and thoughts going into it.